When young couple Sandra and Steven had their first child, they were flabbergasted at their dog's strange behavior with the baby. When they finally figured out what their pet was doing, they were shaken to the call. Steven and Sandra had been together for roughly 10 years when they found out they were pregnant. A few years back, they had begun trying to have children, but had some struggles along the way. Sandra had had a rough time facing the possibility that she might not be able to have children. Steven loved his wife, and it had broken his heart to see her light dim. So, he had gone out and purchased an adorable, loving dog. When Steven had brought the dog home to Sandra, she had been enthusiastic. She had named the animal Molly and poured her love into raising and training him. A few years had gone by, and while the couple enjoyed their life with Molly, they had never given up on their dream to have a baby together. One day, Steven noticed something peculiar happening with Molly. The dog would not leave Sandra alone and would whine at the door even if she just had to use the bathroom. Steven looked closely at the pup, but couldn't notice anything wrong with his health. Perplexed, he went to sit with his wife that night after dinner, but when he got close to the couch, Molly hopped on Sandra's lap and growled at Steven. The couple was thoroughly confused. Molly loved Steven and was usually very happy when he had the chance to share the couch with his owners. So, what was different about this day? Sandra had a theory, but it was a wild one. Molly was becoming more and more protective of her, especially when Steven kissed or hugged her. So, she slipped away to the bathroom to test her theory. 20 minutes later, she came back into the living room in tears. He rushed over to Sandra, and it was only when he hugged her that he saw the positive pregnancy test, clutched in her hand. Steven joined his wife in crying happy tears, and then he went and gave Molly tons of treats for being so loyal to his mom. What a perceptive dog. Luckily for Sandra and Steven, their dog continued to try to protect his family well after the end of the pregnancy. After what felt like an eternity, Sandra finally came to term and delivered a beautiful and healthy baby girl. They named her Emma, a nod to the bright blue hue of Mitten's eyes. Sandra came home to find her husband and best friend there, eager to celebrate and help with Emma. She also had someone else to rely on. Sandra and her best friend Margaret had become friends right around the time she had met Steven. Margaret had been a bridesmaid at their wedding and spent a great deal of time with both of them. She had even helped them find their house. The couple unanimously decided that she would be Auntie Margaret for Emma, and were grateful to have the extra pair of hands while they adjusted to this new chapter in their lives. Oddly though, while things appeared to be going very well, Molly did not seem relieved in the slightest. The dog continued to guard both Sandra and Emma and spent the first night with the baby frantically begging to stay near her the entire time. Now this was strange to Sandra and Steven. They had thought that Molly would calm down after Emma was born. But if anything, the dog became more agitated than ever. Steven and Sandra let the behavior slide for a few nights, being so exhausted and overwhelmed themselves. Perhaps the whole house would be discombobulated for a little while as they welcomed Emma into the family. After about a week, however, Steven began to worry. Molly was following a new routine where she would guard Emma at night and refused to go on walks if Sandra and the baby were not going. Around 2 months after Emma was born, Steven and Sandra were both fed up with their dog. It was a difficult situation. They loved Molly through and through and wanted to keep him, but they were growing more uncomfortable with his recent rebelliousness. Emma's safety was the highest priority. The couple had so much to think about and very little downtime to discuss things together. That is until one night when Steven schemed with Margaret to arrange a date for Sandra. Margaret was to come over and babysit so that Steven could surprise his wife and take her out to dinner. It was a beautiful gesture, and Sandra gladly accepted the chance to go out for the first time without Emma. When the time came to leave the house, she felt very nervous to leave her baby. She was so thankful to have her bestie there to help, but even Margaret could not calm Molly when Stephen and Sandra walked out the door. Molly was barking and howling and clearly distressed. Sandra almost changed her mind about going, but then took a deep breath and left, hoping to show Molly that it was no big deal to be separated for a while. The couple had a wonderful date that night. They were able to commiserate about Molly as well as discuss things from other parts of their lives. Stephen was a highly esteemed government worker and he loved sharing tidbits from his job. Sandra enjoyed hearing about anything that wasn't baby-related. Since her past 2 months had been full of Emma. It was very unfortunate then that Margaret called halfway through dinner to ask them to come home. Apparently Molly had tried to bite her. When she put him in his crate, he became inconsolable and she did not know what to do. Stephen and Sandra cut their date short and went home to help her wonder. When they got home, Emma was in a Krober's sleep and Margaret was watching television in the room with Molly. They apologized to their friend and made sure she was all right. When Margaret left, Sandra turned her attention to Molly. The dog was acting very strange indeed. As the front door closed, he calmed down immediately. Stephen opened the crate door to let the dog out. The couple stood in confused silence as they watched their dog happily stride towards Emma's room. They decided to go to bed and to try to flicker Molly out with clear heads. In the morning, Stephen awoke remembering the security cameras he had installed in his house a few months earlier. He rushed to his computer to see what had really happened between Molly and Margaret. Maybe that would give him a clue as to what had been triggering the poor dog. But Stephen was shocked when he saw that the footage from the previous night had been deleted. Perplexed, he searched further through his archives and realized there was a huge amount of deleted files. Stephen felt a chill run down his spine when he figured out the pattern in the deleted files. The footage was only missing from Emma's room. Almost every night since Emma was born, the images had been deleted. So Stephen set up a new hidden camera and backed it up separately from his usual system. He didn't want to scare Sandra, so he didn't tell her about it until the following day when he looked through the video. Stephen ran to show Sandra immediately and she started to cry as she ran and phoned the police. The couple could not believe what they had seen in the hidden camera footage. The police arrived at the scene to confirm that indeed someone was breaking into the house at night time. They would climb in the window to Emma's room and depart the same way. Stephen and Sandra were horrified to realize that someone was continually sneaking into their baby's room. This horror only grew when the police informed them that the person in question was a woman named Margaret. It turns out that Margaret was actually a foreign intelligence agent on a job monitoring Stephen's work in government security. She'd laid the groundwork almost a decade previously, first becoming the couple's best friend and then finding them a home with a small secret room built in. The police knocked down a wall in Emma's bedroom to find a little nest of research on Stephen and equipment for long-range correspondence. They also found a safe with money and passports. The police searched for Margaret but have yet to find her to this day. The parents were horrified at the thought that they had left their helpless baby in the hands of a woman who had only feigned affection towards them. Margaret was probably never going to hurt Emma, but the lies she had told them were enough to make them fear and despise her. Molly calmed down significantly from the day Margaret disappeared and Stephen and Sandra treated her like a hero for the rest of her life, grateful for her protective behavior over their baby girl. What an incredible twist! Have you ever trusted a friend or family member with your children and found out they didn't deserve your trust? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.